Hello everyone, hope you all are doing great. My name is Prabhat and in this tutorial we are going to build a digital clock in LWC. In this tutorial we will use pure JavaScript to build this digital clock. There won't be any server side interaction. So let me show you the digital clock. I am on account page of the Salesforce, and if you see here, you can see one digital clock which is showing 2 p.m. afternoon, and this digital clock will be built in LWC, and then we will include that page on a record to show it whenever you open the record. So let's start. Okay, so let's create a project and then create a Lightning Web Component. To create a Lightning Web Component in LWC, you need to press Ctrl+Shift+P and select the first option, Create Lightning Web Component. I'll create it, and then you need to put desired file name. So I'll put file name as digital clock, and I'll save it on default directory. Yeah, so you can see our digital clock LWC component has been created. With that, there are 3 files which has been created. One is the HTML file, other one is JS file, and the XML file, which is the configuration file. So I am on digital clock HTML page. In HTML page, I'll define one div, and I'll write div, and then I'll define some classes to the div so that we can do a styling. So I'll use SLDS box and SLDS theme default. So these classes are basically default classes of Lightning Design System, and one custom class I'll define called black color. So this class we are going to use to make our background as black. Okay, now we will define one h1 tag where here the clock will be present. Okay, so let me save it, and then we need to do some configuration. So I'll make it true, and this configuration is required so that the page could show on the record page. So I'll save it and I'll push it to I'll deploy it to source.org. Okay, so we'll go to the Salesforce. We will go to the edit page, and we'll search for digital clock, and I'll place it somewhere. Here. No, just place it here. Okay, I'll save it, and let's go back. Okay, so see, our clock will be visible here, and if you see, I have put this text is visible here. Now next thing we need to do, we need to make this black. The color should be black. To make it, I'll add one CSS file, and make sure your CSS file should match with the component LWC component name .css. In the CSS file, I'll just copy this black color, and here I'll define background color as black. I'll save it and I'll push it to source.org, and I'll refresh the page. So if you see, now our background is black and the text is not visible because the text is also in the black color. No problem, we will do some styling for our h1 tag as well. So to do that, let me go to here. In h1 tag I'll put inline styling, and in this I'll define color of the text as it would be something bluish, right? And I'll change the font size to 40 pixel. I'll save it and let's push it to the Salesforce. Yeah, let's refresh it. Yeah, so the text is looking great now. Okay, so we are done till here. Now what we need to do? So now we need to write a function in JavaScript which is going to display the actual time. So in the digital clock I'll define some variable. So I'll use track decorator, and in the previous tutorial, so I'll use track decorator, and I'll define track hours, then I'll define track minutes, then I'll define track seconds, and then one more variable that would be track time. So we have hours, minutes, seconds, and then the actual time. Okay, so now we will create one function to show the time. So what we will do, we'll create a function. It would be the JavaScript function, and here we will define date. We can define it like, you can get the current date like this, and then I'll define the session. So session means if it is a AM or PM, so it would be by default as AM. Okay, so now we will assign to our variable. So let's get the hours. So to get the hours, we can use date dot get hours. Get hours, right? Okay, we will do same for the minutes. So date dot get minutes, and same will be done for date dot seconds equal to date dot get seconds. So you have option to get milliseconds as well, but we need seconds. So what we have done, we have assigned current hour, current minute, and the current seconds. So there is one more thing we need to do. So the time which these codes will return the time of the railway time, we call it, like it would be the time, like if it is 11 PM, it will 11 PM. So right now this code will show like this 23. So we don't want this, we want to show it as 11 PM. So we will do formatting of the time. So what we will do, if this dot hours equal to 0. Okay, if this dot hours equal to 0, then we will assign this dot hours equal to 12. And there is one more if condition would be there. If this dot hours greater than 12, so it would be this dot hours equal to this dot hours minus 12. And here also we will assign session equal to PM. Okay, so what exactly this code will do? So let's say if this dot hours is 23, if the time is 23, so it will just minus 12 to return at 11 and then PM. So this is what this if function is going to do. Okay, there are some more formatting we need to do, and these formattings are basically, let's say it's 9 AM, so the clock would return like this 9 AM, but what we want to return 09, like it should be what we call, so it should be in 2 digit. We don't want to show the time in the single digit for minutes, hour and seconds. To format that, what we will do, this dot hours equal to, okay, then this dot hours, if it is less than 10, then we will add 0 to this dot hours, and if it is more than 10, then this dot hours, it would be as it is. We'll do same for the minutes and the seconds. Okay, so let me quickly minutes, and I'll just replace this with the minutes, and then we will have seconds. We'll just replace with the seconds. Yay. Okay, so time formatting is done. Now the next thing we need to do to store this in the time variable. So we already defined this time variable. Here what we will do, this dot hours, then we will define this semicolon colon, and then this dot minutes. Again we will define this yay this hours minutes, and then for seconds we will do same thing. Right, and then we need to show if it is AM or if it is PM. So to do that, I'll include one space and then I'll type session. So we are done with our time part. Right, now so let me push it these changes, and so there are few more things we need to do. We'll create one function which we'll call show time function. So I'll name it timeout function. Okay, and in this function we will define const time out, and then we will use one JavaScript function. So what exactly this JavaScript function does: set timeouts calls any function periodically. Like, let's say if you have set this inside this set timeout, if you have set, if the function will be called on every seconds, even you can set if it could be called every minute. So these things we can set in the set timeout. So inside that I'll define one new function, and inside the new function we will call this dot show time, and we need to bind this function, because when you call it from set timeout we need to bind it. So I'll use bind and this, and that's great. And then I'll define 1000 milliseconds, which is 1 second. So this show time function is going to call every seconds, right? So far what we have done, we have defined time function, then we have defined show time, where we have done all this functionality we have written here to show the time. Now question for you: when this function should be called? So these functions should be called when the page is getting load. So there is a lifecycle hooks of the Salesforce, and you must have heard connected callback. I'll create another video on that. If you include any function inside the connected callback, and when the page will be loaded, the connected callback will be called. So this is what we are going to do here. We'll write function connected callback, and inside the connected callback we will call show time. Okay, oh, that's great. I think we are good to go. We need to call this timeout function here, so that every time it gets called. There is one more thing we need to do. We need to copy this, do you see, time, and we need to go to our HTML file, and instead of this, inside the curly braces we will include the time variable. Okay, that is okay. So let me push it to the source org. Let's see how it looks there. So here I am on the Salesforce. I'll refresh the page. Oh, this dot set timeout not a function. Is it not a function? Okay, let me check the code. Oh, okay, so there is some spelling mistake. Sorry. Actually, we need to call timeout function here, and then save it, deploy it to source.org, and then refresh the page. I believe it should work now. Yeah, if you see here, the time is visible. There is one more thing we need to do. We want this clock to be in the center of this div. So to do that, we'll go to our CSS file. We will use align text align equal to center. We'll save it, and then I'll push it, deploy this to source.org. Yeah, all done. If you see here, the digital clock, the brand new digital clock is showing here on the page. So this is how you can create digital clock in LWC. Thank you.